Chapter 4, Suppliers and Expenses, Part 1. Managing expenses is a critical part of any small business. In this chapter, the students will learn the steps for managing the day-to-day expenses in their business. In this chapter, the students will learn about how to set up suppliers, tracking cash expenses and checks, tracking accounts payable using bills, and how to create basic expense and supplier reports. QuickBooks uses the supplier list to hold information about the people and companies you do business with. For example, this list could include the phone company, your office supplies supplier, and other businesses where you purchase goods and services. Setting up your supplier on the Suppliers page allows you to keep track of how much you spend with each supplier over any period of time. If you need to keep track of accounts payable, each of your suppliers must be set up on the suppliers list. This is an important step before entering accounts payable with your students. To set up a supplier, do the following. Click Expenses. Then click the Suppliers link. Click New Supplier. Enter the appropriate information for the contact information of the supplier. After entering all of the necessary information, click Save to close. Expense workflows in QuickBooks. There are several ways to record expenses in QuickBooks. The method you use depends on your business and the details that you need to track in your company. Every business incurs expenses. These might include office supplies, rent, utilities, and any other expenses incurred to help you run the business. All expenses will be tracked to expense accounts in the chart of accounts. Expenses in QuickBooks are defined as transactions that do not include a bill from a supplier. In other words, they are paid for at the time that the expense is incurred. Examples of expenses include debit card purchases, credit card purchases, Interact transactions, checks, and cash transactions. To record an expense, you'll use the expense transaction type. When you pay for an expense at a later time, the students will use the accounts payable process in QuickBooks. To record accounts payable, you record the expense using the bill form and pay the bill using the Pay Bills window. When you track accounts payable, you can see what you owe suppliers at any time using the AP Aging Detail and Summary reports. There are 3 key benefits to tracking accounts payable. First, you can keep track of what you owe suppliers at any time by reviewing the AP reports. Second, QuickBooks helps you avoid entering duplicate bills for the same vendor. And third, you can track the expenses in the correct period. To record accounts payable, you will use a 2-step workflow. The first step will be to enter bills. The second step will be to pay bills. Now let's look at these 2 primary expense workflows in QuickBooks in a little bit more detail. Expenses in QuickBooks. To record an expense, you can enter the expense transaction or a check. In this section, you'll learn how to enter these 2 transaction types. When you don't have a bill accompanying the expense, you will use the expense type of transaction to record the following in QuickBooks Online. As we've mentioned before, these include debit card, credit card, Interact payments, and other online payments that are common in small business today. To create an expense, click the Create menu, and then click Expense. Complete the transaction fields. First, enter the payee. Then choose the appropriate payment account. Typically, this will be a bank or credit card account. Next, choose the appropriate expense to track the spending in the company. Enter a description if necessary. You would enter a description if you want to keep track of any details about this transaction. This information will display on all expense reports. Enter the amount of the expense. Usually this is going to be the amount before tax. Then choose the sales tax if it's not already attached to the account. QuickBooks automatically calculates the amount of sales tax per the sales tax rate you choose. Finally, after entering all of the necessary fields, click Save and Close to save the transaction. After recording expenses in QuickBooks, you can view a list of all expense transactions when you click the Expenses tab at the top of the window. Use the expense transaction for all cash types of transactions. Checks in QuickBooks. Use the check form if you are writing a check to pay your supplier that is not accompanied by a bill. This could include recording a handwritten check or a check to be printed later. To enter a check, click the Create menu and then click Check. Just like the expense form, enter the payee and the appropriate bank account. Enter the payment date. If you're handwriting the check, enter the check number, or select Print Later if you're going to be printing the QuickBooks check at a later time. Choose the account to track the expense. Once again, enter a description. This is an optional field and will report on any expense report at a later time. Enter the amount and the sales tax rate if it's not already chosen for you. Finally, click to save. If you added a check number, QuickBooks records the number in sequence. If it is marked to print later, the check number will be added after the check is printed. Bills in QuickBooks. When you choose to track your bills and pay them later, you'll use Accounts Payable. This workflow has two required steps. The first step is Enter Bills, and the second step is Pay Bills. There is a third optional step if you're printing checks to pay bills. Before entering bills, you can enable a setting to help you avoid duplicates. Click the gear icon and then click Account and Settings. Click Advanced and then click Other Preferences. Select the option Warn if duplicate bill number is used. Click Save and then click Done to update the setting. This ensures that you'll receive a warning whenever a duplicate bill number is used in QuickBooks. To enter a bill, click the Create menu and then click Bill. Enter the supplier name. Since you're going to be tracking accounts payable, this is a required field as QuickBooks must be able to attach a supplier name to the accounts payable. Enter the bill number. This is the number that looks for duplicate entries. It's also a good idea, if you're looking for bills at a later time, to enter the bill number as this is the field that QuickBooks will search. Choose the expense account and then add a description if necessary. Enter the amount and sales tax as needed. Note the attachment option. This is helpful when trying to keep source documents. You can scan and attach the source bill document. This helps keep the digital records all in one place. After entering the bill information, click Save and Close. QuickBooks now keeps track of this accounts payable until it's paid in full. Basic supplier and expense reporting. After entering bills and recording expenses, you can create several preset reports designed to help you manage your expenses and accounts payable. Click Reports, and then click All Reports. Click Manage Accounts Payable. From here, you can create the AP Aging Summary Report to view all of your accounts payable over periods of time. From the same window, you can click the Unpaid Bills Detail Report to view a list of all unpaid bills as of a specific date. Check out the accounts payable and other expense reports in QuickBooks as needed. Paying bills in QuickBooks. To pay a bill, click the Create menu. Click Pay Bills. QuickBooks displays all the outstanding bills in your accounts payable. First, choose the payment account at the top of the window. This account will be used to pay the selected bills. Enter the payment date. Then choose how you're going to pay the bills. You can pay by handwritten check or print a check at a later time. In the case where you're paying the bill with a credit card, you'll choose the credit card account in the Payment Account field. If you pay the bill online, you can enter the label Online in the Check Number field. Now, select the bills to pay in the left-hand column. When selected, QuickBooks assumes that you're paying the bill in full. If you're not paying the bill in full, enter the payment amount for each bill. After selecting the bills to pay, you're ready to save. There are several saving options. First, click Save and Print to print checks now. From here, you'll continue to print checks. For this class, you won't be required to choose this option. The alternative is to click Save and Close to print the checks later or to save the handwritten checks.